So there seems to be a misconception where people think that I love Totem speakers, like all of them. And that's not entirely true. I don't necessarily like the Totem Sky, those Totem Skylights, the ones that I've heard. Now, I haven't heard the Forest yet, or the Arrow, but the ones that I heard in that kind of line of Totem speakers, I'm not a total fan. I understand what they're going for, but it's not my type of sound. But when it comes to the design of the Totem Tribe towers that I reviewed, which I'll link in the description below, that's an entirely different design, even though it's the same Totem speaker. The drivers are crossover-less drivers in the woofer, and it's only a first order crossover on the tweeter, which means it's just a capacitor. And with this type of design, the form factor and the experience is entirely different, and it was an entirely different sound profile and presentation that the Totem Tribes delivered to me. Now, if I just stopped there and called it a day and kept the Totem Tribe towers, then I wouldn't be as crazy as I seem. But instead, I had to experience what the upper line can bring to the table. The Metal version 2 is very similar to the Totem Tribe towers, except it is bigger, it has a bigger woofer, crossoverless as well, so a lot of the similar technologies and cabinetry design, just bigger and better and badder. So I definitely had to experience that because I loved the Totem Tribe towers so much. I just wanted to see what possibly can get better from the Totem Tribe towers. Now the only problem was the price. The price is 15,000 US dollars approximately, and 18,000 in Canada in Canadian dollars, again, approximately. So that's a lot of money for a speaker, and I definitely didn't have that kind of budget. So I started to reach out to dealers to see if I can hear them in my room and possibly review them. And obviously I succeeded, since you see them in my room right now. So big shout out to A Fidelity. He is a patron of mine, and it's just turns out that he actually works at a dealership that sells Totem. So again, big shout out to the dealership as well, Simcoe Audio Video in Barrie. Those guys were super helpful, super friendly, helped me pack the speakers, and I brought them here in my room. Now, they're extremely patient. I had this speaker for a while now, and they're probably wondering what the hell is he doing with the speakers. Well, the fact is, there's two reasons I haven't gotten to review these speakers yet. The first thing is, every time I listen to these speakers, it just amazes me, and I find new things about the speaker that I want to talk about, and it postpones my review process. So every time it amazes me. Every time I sit down and listen, it amazes me. It brings me something that I want to talk about in the video, which is a good thing. And the second thing is, it's just so good that I just didn't want to review it, because once the review is done, then you guys are gonna want it back. Now obviously I can go ahead and buy it, but that's gonna cost a pretty penny obviously, and I would have to budget very hard and eat a lot of instant ramen. But it's very big possibility that I will eventually buy these pair of speakers. And here is my reasoning. When I heard the Totem Tribe towers, again, I bought it with my own money, no affiliations with Totem whatsoever. I just love the tonal balance and the tonality of the speaker. And what I mean by that is it sounded like the real thing when I hear instruments. And I know that's cliche and a lot of people talk about it, but that's really important for me. The tonality is a big portion of what I look for in a speaker. That is what is important to me, more than imaging, more than sound staging, what it actually sounds like. The instruments has to resemble what I actually hear in a live recording or when I play. So guitars, saxophones, drums, that are some of the instruments that I play, sounded like closest thing to the real thing. And then the high frequency had enough air, which is also important to me, had really good imaging, which was a bonus, really nice soundstage, and again, great bottom end for the size of the speaker, just absolutely defies physics. So that's practically all I could possibly ask for in a speaker, in accordance with my taste, of course. But I had to go and try the Metal version 2, because you always have that, wonder of what the next, upper line can bring to the table. So I went ahead and picked it up, and as I was coming back from the dealership, this was what was going through my head. I was thinking, yeah, the Totem Tribe towers are going to be just fine. I'm gonna end up buying it again, and the Meta version 2, they may be a little bit better, but I probably won't be able to justify the price. I mean, that's a lot of money. I can probably buy a lot of camera gear, a lot of lighting, lots of meals, pay lots of rent, etc., etc. Lots of thoughts in my head. But the moment I set these up and actually heard them, everything changed. I had to have these. Now, let's be fair, comparing it to the Totem Tribe towers, the Totem Tribe towers do have slightly better edge in tonality, meaning to me, it sounds like the Totem Tribe towers are a little bit closer to the real thing. But the Meta version 2s are not far behind. In fact, when I first listened to them, I was just absolutely blown away by the full presence of the speakers. It was the sound field, the imaging, the bottom end, the whole package was just blew the Totem Tribe towers out of my mind. It was not even there anymore when I was listening to the Meta version 2s. Now, let's talk about the bottom end, starting with the bass. Now, in terms of the bass, there's no comparison. The Meta version 2s blow most speakers out of the water. I mean, I don't think you even need a subwoofer with this speaker. It really does extend down low. And even when I'm watching movies and stuff, it is just rumbling the house, great bass authority, great control, like one of the best controlled bass I've ever heard. Just really, really tight and controlled, even comparison to some of the Wilson Audio speakers like the Wilson Audio Sabrina, and even compared to the Wilson Audio DAW, which is one of my favorite Wilson Audio speakers of all time, the bass was just very tight and controlled and comparable. And that's something to be said because that speaker is like, what, $40,000 something dollars in Canadian dollars, around 37,000 US, I believe. So that's something to be said. The bass was just absolutely to die for. And then came the mid-range. The mid-range was silky smooth, just really, really textured and full bloom. Really I thought I was listening to like the JBL speakers that I love so much, or Tannoy speakers I love so much. It didn't sound too modern. It was a good balance between like the modern speakers that love like those micro details with vintage speakers that just sound smooth and silky. It was somewhere right in between with good balance of both. And it was just perfect for me. And the tonality was not far behind from the Totem Tribe towers. So that was just very impressive. And then the high frequency was not bright whatsoever, even more so than the Totem Tribe towers in a way. I mean, I threw like multiple tracks onto these speakers, like modern tracks, rock tracks, jazz. Everything just played with so much bloom, love, and authority and scale. And so let's talk about scale. The scale is just enormous with this speaker. I thought the Totem Tribe Tower sounded grounded with its bass, sounded like it was not even there, and had really nice soundstage and imaging. This speaker, even though it's a bigger speaker than the Totem Tribe Towers, the Meta version 2 has better imaging, even just enormous soundstage that just stretches out of the room. And most importantly, it has a sense of scale that just defies most speakers. Just incredible. It stretches deep, wide, and it's just everywhere. So it has really good sense of scale. You feel like you're listening to a massive speaker. So that was very impressive to me. And considering the size of these speakers, which is not really that big compared to a lot of speakers out there, it just sounded like I was listening to like speakers that was much, much bigger, like the likes of Wilson Audio Alexia or something like that. And in comparison to speakers like Wilson Audio, for example, which I've mentioned a lot because I have a lot of experience with Wilson Audio speakers. I used to sell them at a high-end retail store. Wilson Audio speakers are extremely good. I mean, I don't think you can go wrong with Wilson Audio speakers, but at the same time, I feel like the Totems bring something that is more valuable, at least to me, to the table. And that is, if I put it simply, is the purity. It just sounds more pure to me. And that is perhaps maybe because of the crossover-less driver design. where the drivers, the woofers, have no crossover in them. They designed it from ground up so that it can have a nice linear frequency response without having a crossover, which allows for more purity. So the saying goes, like I said in the Totem tribe review, less crossover is a better crossover. So this means that the woofers have almost nothing in the signal path between your amplifier and the drivers itself. And this driver technology is called the Totem driver technology. I'll link to more of the details in the description below for you guys to read. And of course, the Metal version 2 has a 7-inch, which is a bigger woofer than the, I believe, 4-inch on the Totem Tribe towers, which allows it to play much, much deeper than the Totem Tribe towers. I believe it's spec'd to be 26 Hertz or something like that. I think with room gain, it goes down lower in my room, which is plenty of bass authority and extension. And I believe the tweeter is a 1-inch titanium dome tweeter. So it's a metal dome tweeter. But despite this, yes, it is detailed and has those micro details and openness, just like some Focal and Magical speakers of its counterparts that use metal dome tweeters. But the Totem speakers don't sound bright to me whatsoever. It doesn't sound as analytical as the Focal or the Magical speakers that I'm used to. Now, don't get me wrong, that's not a bad thing. Some people like that more analytical, more detailed presentation, but the Totem speakers just appeal more to me because I'm not about that bright presentation. The Totem Metal version 2s don't have that kind of, even the Totem Tribe towers don't have that kind of brighter characteristic, yet it has all those micro details in the high frequencies that I can really appreciate. And what I loved about the Focal and Magical speakers were those micro details, but were just a tad bit bright for my personal liking. So the Totem Metal version 2s does the things that I like and takes away the things that I don't like, which took me a long time to find a speaker like that. Even the Wilson audio speakers with certain recordings, especially the poor recordings, it doesn't come across as musical to me, and it kind of reveals all the faults in the music. So I couldn't enjoy the poor recordings that I had with the Wilson audio speakers when I used to work at the store. However, the Totem Metal version 2s excel with poor recordings. And some of you may disagree with me, but when I played poor recordings that my mother, entrusted with me from my family and stuff, when I play them, it just played flawlessly. But when I play higher, resolution recordings of Tidal and stuff like this, it just excels even farther and gives me more and more. So it definitely has scalability when it comes to the music format as well. So that was very interesting, and also it excels with multiple types of gear, which I absolutely love. So it's 91 dB in sensitivity. So it just has great sensitivity to be played around with multiple types of gear. It's not hard to drive. Now, I know some people say that Totem speakers require big power to make it sound good or right, and is picky with amplification and stuff like this. Maybe, but in my experience, maybe I was just lucky. I had two amplifiers that I mainly played with this speaker, and it was one a tube amplifier, and the second one was a solid state amplifier that we all know very well. So the first one, let's start with the first one, was a tube amplifier. It was the Wilsonton 805 single-ended tube amplifier. Not a lot of power, so it just sounded absolutely fluid, and just I was never left thinking that I needed more power. The only actually time I wanted more power was when I was playing perhaps demanding tracks with a lot of bass authority and extension, and the tube amplifier started to struggle to deliver all that power. But other than that, for most tracks, unless you play a lot of like EDM and deep tracks, it just was fabulous with the mid-range just blooming, smooth liquidity, more three-dimensional. And the second one, actually my favorite pairing, a little bit on the pricey side, was the Bryston amplifier, integrated amplifier that I had in here. And this one was just absolutely insane. Now, I was thinking that with Bryston's, I would get a little bit of a brighter presentation, but no. This is why you have to actually try it. Because in my head, I was like, it's gonna be just a tad little bright with the brightness, but it wasn't. In fact, it was smooth like a butter on the top, even compared to the tube amplifier. It was never bright. I could just crank up the volume and it just sounded magnificent. The bass was definitely more apparent and deeper and more controlled. And definitely I had to change the positioning of the speakers once I changed to the solid state amplifier. And this is a common mistake that I see a lot of audiophiles making or music enthusiasts making is when they change their amplifier, they keep the speakers in the exact same spot and then evaluate the amplifier. You have to change the speaker positioning to make it sound as good as possible when you change your amplifier. Because you may run into the same problem that I had here, where I changed to the Bryston amplifier, and then now the speakers were more apparent in the bass region, kind of cluttering the mid-range and the high frequency a little bit. So I just changed the positioning of the speakers right now because I changed to the Bryston amplifier from the tube amplifier. Now I don't think these are hard to position at all. They do need some space from the wall behind them. I think the general rule of thumb, at least in my room, is about 3 foot or so. You can go a little bit less as well, but these can work in a small room as well, like this one. You just need some space from the wall behind them. But in a medium-sized to large-sized room would be an ideal room size for speakers like these. Now, other than that, they don't seem too sensitive in terms of placement. I like them with small amounts of toe-in because I still get that great center dead imaging. But you can toe them in more for that really dead center imaging, really pinpoint imaging, but at the sacrifice of some sound staging. So I like to have it toed in as little as possible so that I get that dead center imaging with grand sense of scale and soundstage. So yeah, really great. So I brought out the speakers a little bit out into the room a little bit more, and now I had clarity, beautiful, beautiful highs. Mid-range was just full bloom as well, with bass extension just even going lower and deeper, and just crazy stuff happening in my room with that placement. So definitely consider changing your placement of your speakers once you change your components in your system. So after that, I was just very happy. I was rocking out, and I would have to say that with the Totem Meta version 2s, I enjoyed it with the Brystons more. Now I know you guys are gonna ask me how does it sound with this amplifier or that amplifier. The answer is I don't know. I don't have the capability to listen to every amplifier pairing with these speakers, but what I can tell you is that they are not as picky as they seem. I mean, they sounded fabulous with the tube amplifier as well. They did sound better with the Bryston. So it just depends on what you're playing around with and how you position the speakers to get it to really sing and make it sound better to you. Now, I do have a little confession to make, and that's that after my listening session was over and I fully evaluated the speaker and was just absolutely blown away, I decided to go into my kitchen and do a little bit of dishwashing while jamming out to some music. Now, usually I do this a lot, but usually speakers don't impress me when I'm in the kitchen. When I was listening to the Meta version 2s, I was rocking out so hard. It just was so enjoyable, and I could actually experience the scale and the good tonal balance of the speakers in the kitchen right next to the listening room. Hey man, don't judge. But this just goes to show how good this speaker is with its off-axis response. Even if I have multiple people in the room, or even if I'm not perfectly sitting in the sweet spot right in the middle of the speakers, it sounds really good, and the tonal balance and the tonality can be really enjoyed in its off-axis position. So I really did enjoy the speakers. I am just breathless with these speakers, and before the review, I couldn't justify the price, but now I definitely can, and I am in deep shit as usual. So there you have it, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Reading some of your comments from the Totem Tribe review. Luke Wilmer, Jay, the Tribe Towers are fantastic. However, you've got to try and hear the Totem Fire version 2 or the Metal version 2. Seriously, next level. Hey, Luke knew what's up. Big J, considering Jay used to sell $50,000 speakers, this video says a lot. Hey man, I used to sell speakers in the $186,000 speaker range, and I'm not saying this in any egotistical way. I couldn't afford those speakers, so... But yeah, it says a lot that I love these speakers so much, but it also says that it has a lot to do with my taste, and Totem speakers just have a special part in my heart, just personal tasting. Roof Pizza, funny, just today I was wondering where all the Totem reviews were on YouTube. Yeah, I know, right? Totem, I think they're not too keen on reviewing stuff on YouTube, but that's on, that's their thing. This is my thing. I'll find ways to review them, either borrow them or beg them or steal them, whatever it means. Alex Paitner, don't you get tired of superlatives? You rave about the Alta Alec and other speakers in the same way. I like speakers. I mean, you're the type of guy that if I tell you, all coffee here is great and then coffee there is great too, you're like, you say everything is great. No. I love the Alta Alex too. I love these speakers too. Now, if it came down to it, I would go with the Totems because of the tonality that these speakers provide that I value very much. Simple as that. It's like going to a coffee shop. This shop has a more darker, rich coffee. This coffee shop has more creamy, soft and just delicious coffee. Both are great coffee. Tim Caulfield, I heard before, this is the third time you found the best speaker. Do I have to be called out every single time I like a speaker? This is an audiophile channel, for God's sakes. Just leave me alone. If this video was helpful to you, consider subscribing and clicking that like button and the bell notification button. And also consider supporting us on our Patreon page to keep us independent and keep these honest videos and reviews coming. Until next time.